The clock on the microwave read 11:47 p.m. Each digit pulsed with a malevolent glow, mocking me. "Late meeting," she'd said again. "Away, friend." For months, it had been late meetings, urgent deadlines, and networking events. Each excuse a meticulously constructed lie that she thought I'd swallow whole. I wasn't a fool, just a man desperately clinging to the ghost of what we once were. The house was silent, a silence that amplified the thunder in my chest. I'd spent the last hour pacing, the floorboards groaning beneath my feet, a counterpoint to the gnawing unease in my gut. I'd replayed every conversation, every missed call, every distracted glance. I'd even foolishly considered that it was all in my head. I knew deep down that it wasn't. Tonight, though, tonight was different. Tonight I had proof. I had installed the security cameras a few weeks ago, citing a rise in petty crime in the neighborhood. A flimsy excuse, I knew, but a necessary one. It wasn't the front door or the backyard I was interested in. It was the camera I'd positioned in the living room, camouflaged inside a potted plant. I told her we could use it to watch the dogs when we weren't home. She'd agreed. She even smiled. That smile. I thought it was fake then, and I knew for sure now. I sat on the sofa, the remote control trembling in my hand. The TV screen flickered, displaying the security feed. The living room was empty except for the soft glow of the moonlight filtering through the sheer curtains. Then the front door creaked open. The click was almost imperceptible, but it sent a jolt through me. Her silhouette appeared in the hallway, a familiar shape that now felt alien. Her footsteps were light, too light for someone who'd spent hours at a demanding meeting. They were the footsteps of someone trying to be quiet, of someone who had something to hide. She slipped off her heels near the door, tossing them haphazardly onto the floor. She didn't look flushed. Her hair was a little more disheveled than when she left, her lips a shade redder, a ghost of a smile still lingering, a triumphant one. I paused the recording, a woman I barely recognized any more frozen on the screen. I took a deep breath, the air catching in my throat. It was time. I'd spent the last few weeks preparing, carefully choreographing my revenge. Not a violent one or a screaming one, but a cold, calculated dismantling of the carefully constructed world she'd built around her lies. I had backups of everything, copies on multiple hard drives in the cloud. Every lie, every whispered phone call, every secret rendezvous documented and cataloged. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister. "Remember what we talked about. Stay strong." I managed a weak smile. She knew. She'd seen the subtle signs, the growing distance, the flicker of dishonesty in her eyes. She tried to warn me, but I'd refused to listen, blinded by a love that had long since withered. I unpaused the video. I saw her walk into the living room, her gaze landing on the television screen. Her eyes widened, her mouth opening in a silent gasp. Her hand flew to her mouth. The blood drained from her face, leaving her pale. She was seeing it all, the footage I downloaded from the camera, a replay from exactly 1 hour ago. It wasn't just any recording. It was a time-lapse of her and another man, a colleague of hers named Mark, in a hotel room. Their bodies intertwined, a grotesque dance of infidelity that played out on the screen like a scene from a bad movie. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered word captured in excruciating detail. The camera was angled perfectly, revealing not just their faces but the cheap hotel art on the wall, the brand of the water bottles on the nightstand. Details that screamed betrayal, details she'd never know I had. Her legs buckled. She sank onto the carpet, her eyes wide with horror. Her carefully constructed facade of professionalism and innocence shattered around her, leaving her exposed, vulnerable. "Where did you get that?" Her voice trembled, a fragile whisper that barely registered. I didn't answer, didn't move. I just let the video play. I wanted her to see every single disgusting detail. I wanted her to understand the full weight of her betrayal. The footage ended, and the screen flickered to blackness. The silence in the room was heavy, punctuated only by the rapid rise and fall of her chest. "How long?" Her voice was barely audible, a strangled croak. I finally spoke, my voice low and calm. Long enough. No, please. It wasn't. It didn't mean anything. Tears streamed down her face. A pathetic attempt to garner sympathy. I'd seen those tears before. They were always for herself, never for me, never for the damage she caused. It meant enough for you to lie to me, to betray me, I said. That's all that matters. I reached over to the end table and pulled out a thick manila envelope. It landed on the coffee table with a decisive thud. Her gaze fell upon it, fear flickering in her eyes. She reached for it, her hand trembling. Don't, I said. Not yet. I picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside were copies of everything, the security footage, time-stamped and labeled. Photos she didn't know I took, when she would lie to me about going to the gym, where I would find her at a cafe with Mark. Bank statements showing lavish purchases she had tried to hide. Emails she thought were private, printed out, each one damning. Her face paled as I laid them out. This is just evidence. There's more to it. I stood up and walked over to my desk. I pulled a USB out of the drawer. Now this, I said, holding up the drive, contains the same evidence. But more importantly, this also contains every single secret, every single lie you ever told me, every embarrassing text you sent to your friends about me, every negative thing you ever said about my family, every time you lied to me, everything, every single one. And they are all organized, time-stamped, and labeled. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice weak, the tears now flowing freely. I smiled, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I'm going to share it with your family, your friends, your colleagues. I'm going to upload it to the internet. I'm going to make sure everyone sees the real you. Her face crumpled. She'd never imagined such a scenario, never thought I was capable of such cruelty. But she'd never understood the depth of the pain she'd inflicted. She thought I was weak, that I'd just wither away quietly. I wasn't weak. I was just kind, and she had broken that kindness. Please no, don't do that. What do you want? What can I do? She was begging now, her voice filled with desperation. I pointed to the door. Leave, now, and take your things. You have until tomorrow morning to have them gone from this house. If you're here past 10 a.m., I will call the police. Do not contact me again. She stared at me, her eyes filled with disbelief. She thought she could manipulate me, charm her way out of this. She didn't understand. I wasn't interested in revenge anymore. I was done. She stood slowly, her legs still unsteady. She didn't say another word. She just walked out the door, leaving her heels on the floor, a silent testament to her hurried exit. I watched her go, a strange emptiness settling within me. The anger, the hurt. It was all still there, but dulled. I wasn't celebrating. I was just relieved. I turned off the TV, the security feed disappearing into the black. I sat on the sofa, the silence heavy but different now. It wasn't the silence of betrayal. It was the silence of closure. I looked around at my house, the place that had once been our home. Felt empty, yes, but it also felt clean. I stood up, walked into the bedroom, grabbed a bag, and began packing. I wasn't going to be here either. I had a new beginning to plan. I wasn't going to be here either. I had a new beginning to plan. The house was too full of memories, not just the recent painful ones, but the ones from before. The laughter, the shared dreams, the whispered promises that had long since turned to dust. I didn't want to erase those, but I couldn't live among them any longer. I packed methodically, placing only the essentials in my bag. Clothes, documents, my laptop, a few personal items that mattered to me. Everything else could stay. It didn't feel like mine anymore. It was the shell of a life I no longer belonged to. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my sister. Asterisk, you okay? Asterisk. I stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Asterisk, yeah. I will be. Asterisk. And I meant it. I walked to the front door and opened it, inhaling the crisp night air. It smelled like rain, fresh and clean, washing away the remnants of the past. Stepping outside, I felt lighter. The weight of betrayal, of heartbreak, of anger. It was still there, but it wasn't suffocating me anymore. I locked the door behind me and tossed the key into the mailbox. It wasn't mine to hold onto anymore. As I walked to my car, I didn't look back. Not at the house. Not at the life I was leaving behind. I didn't need revenge. I just needed freedom.